tutorial, I am going to show you how I paint a gazania flower with water droplets on it. So maybe you can get something from it. So come along with me and we'll get started on it. I think I'm going to just do a partial flower, so I'm going to have the center of it kind of be here and have petals coming out, and we'll have a little bit of background over here. So I'm just going to use my round brush. I'm going to get it wet, and then I'm going to roll my round brush, and I think I'm going to just roll it in some yellow with a little touch of white, just to give me a place where everything is going to be. So I'm going to come over here and maybe just above center and just lay out the part of the flower here of the center that will be seen. And from there, I'm going to start laying out where some of the petals will be. So maybe we'll do a line here, here, maybe we'll have one here that kind of turns a little. And we'll bring this up so it's kind of like a little bit of a sad face there and a nice big smile here. Now the next petal that I'm going to do, it's going to go underneath this one and underneath the one that's going to be over here. So I'm just going to come off of here and just do a little kind of a point here and bring it back like that. So I'm just doing the end of it. That way this petal, when it comes out, will be over top. And let me bring that down just a little bit more. So now I'll bring this one like this with a little point. And we'll bring this one up like that. So this petal will be over top of this one, and this one will be over top of this one. So this one is set behind. And I'll show you a very easy way to help make sure that it visually stays in the back. And then we'll bring one that kind of goes off the page there. And we'll have another one, comes like this, and we don't see the tip of that. And there'll be one here that we really don't have to draw anything to do for the outline. So I'll just make sure that my outline is clear enough for me to see. And now I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to come in now, I'm going to do my background first, which is over in this area. And you can do whatever you wish for this, obviously, but I think that I'm going to create kind of like what you would see underneath of a flower in a garden. To do that, I'm going to be using my flat brush now. I'm using a 3/4 inch flat brush. I like using a flat brush, especially if I have things to go around, because I can hold it on end like this to come across and do my edges, and then I can do a flat brush stroke. So I really do like using that. I'm going to pick up some green with a little bit of black. And I'm just going to come in And I'm using a crisscross brush stroke. Make sure that I put a little bit of water on my brush and bring it to my palette to mix so that the paint is nice and creamy. So I'm holding my hand like this, and I'm doing a brush stroke, and then I'm turning my wrist and I'm doing another brush stroke. So I am crisscrossing my strokes, first this way, then this way. And I like doing my sides too, so I'm continuing that around the sides. And up in this area, maybe I'll add in a little bit of white. See how I'm bringing that along the edge of the flower, and I will do my crisscross over top. Now I'm going to get some more of this darker green, and I'm going to just come along this edge here, pull this out a bit, and maybe just kind of this whole tip here. Get some more paint on my brush, and I'm going to add some more crisscross strokes. Once you get used to doing these crisscross strokes, you can go relatively fast. Now, up in here, I'm going to just bring this dark area just along this bottom tip of this petal. And I'm going to get a little bit darker for down here. And we'll bring it along like that. Now I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to get some white with just a little touch of that color, and bringing my crisscross strokes up into what I did, just a little bit. And I'm going to take a little pop of the red, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of red right here, and maybe a little bit here. And I might come back in now and just put like a little line here of this green, maybe a little bit more here. And I want to fill this in with more really dark. Oops. So now you see I've kind of created a background that would be something maybe that you would see behind this flower outside. Now that I've laid that area out, I want to come up and do some darker areas up in here. I'm going to use my round brush for this. So I'm still going to be using the green and the black, so I'm rolling my round brush. It's always good to roll a round brush. It helps keep that tip with a nice point on it, and you can load the brush up nicely. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to pick some of these areas, like right here. I need a little bit more water in my mix. Maybe we'll have this be a little bit darker. I'm going to pick up a little bit more black right there. And in between the middle of the petals, we'll have a dark spot. Bring that up. And I think I'm going to have an area right here be just a little bit darker. Right along that corner there. Now I want to just kind of take a look and see. Now I think I'm going to add some red into the mix here. So I'm going to have the black and green, but I'm going to add a little bit of red to it. And I'm going to have this come right here. And we're going to come up right in the middle of that petal. And we will want to add a little bit more red to that. And if you get it too fat, which I just did, you can take your flat brush and rinse it off, and you can come right in along the side and thin it out to the width that you want it. Now let's get back to this. I'm going to put a couple of other kind of like vein lines in here too. It's kind of have a little curve to it, and this is a little bit more red, and this one is also going to curve. So it's like a little frown here and a little smile. And we'll run those down. This one's going to be hiding behind this petal, so we don't have to take that one further down. And for this one, I'm also going to bring a line straight down the middle. With another frown. And another smile. And we'll kind of bring these lines up to connect to that. Now I want to come down here and do the same thing. Frown, smile, frown, smile, and one more time. Now up here, I'm not going to be seeing a whole lot of the flower because we have or the petals, because we have a little ridge that's going to come around here. So I'm not going to do any of these marks on those. Now what I want to do is put the base in now for what's going to be happening here. To do that, I'm going to get some black and I want to come in just a little bit, about this far, and I'm just going to do a little wiggle as I move around. And if you need to straighten it out, if your circle's not quite a circle, we're doing a circle, but part of it's cut off, and sometimes circles can be a little bit challenging for people. I usually encourage people, if they have trouble doing a circle, start with a smile and then do a frown. Part of this is chopped off, so it still might be a little bit of a challenge for you, but it also may help. So now that I have that there, I'm going to get some brown with some black, and I'm going to load this up by rolling, checking to make sure that I have a nice point. What I want to do now is fill this area in. Get a little bit more brown on here. And I'm just doing single strokes. Now this will be our foundation layer, and we'll come back to that in a few minutes. So that'll be our foundation layer for around that part of the center of the flower. Now we need to come out into the flower itself. For this, I'm going to get my Filberts blending brush. I'm using a number 10. I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to get a little bit of black, with just a touch of brown. And right from the center of each petal, I want to come out and create a shadow. And be sure to make sure you add water to your paint as you go. It should glide across and canvas shouldn't be coming through. If you don't have a blending brush, any flatter brush will work for this type of painting that I'm doing now. In here, this is going to be darker. And that's what's really going to help keep that petal behind. In here too, just in that lower section. And we'll have a little bit here. All right, now I want to just take a look, see how everything's laid out. I think I'll make this a little bit darker right there. And be careful when you are adding water to your brush and then bringing it up. Make sure that you always give it a little tap to make sure there's not too much water. If it starts running, you can rinse your brush off, start catching it, and save it. You don't have to panic. Okay, now let's come back into the center of the flower itself now. I want to start laying in some foundation for in there. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my brown brush and I'm going to get some brown and orange. A little bit more brown. And it doesn't have to be completely mixed up. And I'm just going to come in and start dabbing. And I'm going to start from the outside and work my way into the center. And I don't want to do the right in the complete center of the circle. And I'll show you why in a moment. Picked up a little black with that this time. And this is just going to be a base coat that's underneath that's going to serve as giving us some shadow. Get a little bit more orange one here now. And I'm just going to come around until I have a circle in the center. Now for the center circle, I'm going to pick up a little bit of red and orange. And a touch of yellow. And I'm just going to come in and do bigger dabs. A little bit more distinct. And I'm not gonna, there's little white marks showing there now. I'm not gonna so much worry about that. I'm gonna be doing one more thing in that area, so we're gonna let that dry. I'm gonna rinse my round brush off now. Now, some of this black here is still wet. I want to wait for this black paint to dry. When this dries, I'm going to start doing some work on the petals. So let's give the painting a few minutes. I'll be back in a second before we do the next step. Now that our black is dry, I'm going to come in now with some darker tones in this lower section. So I'm going to be using some black with red. So I just am going to pull a little bit of black over here and get some red to it. And black's a pretty strong color, so it's always best to try a little bit, and you can always get more. And I'm going to come right alongside this edge. And I'm not using a real thick paint. It has water added to it, so it's not consistently thick. Right over top of that black. And we're just coming not quite to the edge of the petal there. And we'll run it up just a little bit on the sides there. Now I'm going to get a little more pop of just red for right in the center here. And I'm going to come up and do the same thing. Now in here, it's going to come right to both edges of those two petals in front of it. And a little pop of red right there. Now I can take my brush with a little red and just do some little lines with just some red by holding my brush this way. Just going to put a few red lines in there, like that. A little bit more black over here. We'll come up and do the same thing here. Let me rinse my brush off. We'll bring this up the side. Not quite to the edge. Put a little pop of red in the center. And add some lines. Come in here, this will be fairly dark. over that black. And we'll do the same here. And I'm going to get some red and just put a few, I'm sticking it straight in. Put a few red lines there. We'll come down here and do the same thing. Get a little pop of red right there. Put some red lines by using the end of the brush. Let me get a little bit more red paint on my palette here. All right, let me just straighten this out right here. Now I'm going to come right in here and just clean that edge up with my flat brush that I rinsed off. Okay, now we're going to wait for this to dry now. Let me just straighten this. I'm looking for any places that might have little clumps. If I make sure that I kind of get rid of those, then it'll dry a little bit faster. So we'll do the next part as soon as this is dry, which will be for you in 1 second. For me, a few minutes. Be right back. Come in with some yellow. So just taking some yellow, and this yellow is pretty transparent. I'm going to mix just a little bit of water with this. And I want to come in, and you can bring it onto the red a little, especially right down the center. And I'm just using my flat brush for this. I like the versatility of the flat brush for doing edges and then flat areas. If you have a different brush that you prefer using, everybody kind of tries to find their own way. This is just a way that I like doing it. And I'm going to come all the way down just to the base of the flower on both sides. And when I come to this one, I'm going to come right over the edge. It makes a nice little cast shadow when you go past your outline, so you really don't have to panic if you go past an outline of something. I'm just going to come out like that. Now notice I didn't come down to the edges like I did here because this one's behind these two, so I can't see it. Rinse my brush off a little bit right here. And I'm just going to put a little bit up in here. Maybe pull this down a little bit more here. All right, now I'm going to let that dry. I want to kind of put a little bit of a golden color onto it too, so I want to wait till this dries. In the meantime, I'm going to come over here now, and I'm going to get my blending brush, and I want to make sure that it is dry. So I'm going to wipe it pretty well on my paper towel. I want to pick up a little bit of white, and I just want to Oh, let me add some brown to that. When I come around this, and we'll leave that. Now to help fill in these little white spots I have in here, I'm going to pick up a little bit of red, very thin, and I'm just going to go over this whole thing, let it fill those little white gaps in. And I'll come back in a minute and do some highlights. I do want to come in to this part now and add some finer detail to it. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white, and I'm going to start from the center and just need a little bit more yellow on there. Just do some little wiggles. I'm using my round brush. You can use a smaller brush if it's easier for you. And I'm not going to bring these completely to the edge. I'm just kind of going around the middle part of that outer ring. And some of them will be twisting one way and some will be twisting another way. I'm going to take some white and orange. Do some little other markings around that outer ring. Now I've got yellow and orange mixed together, and I just want to come up here and put some more little dots over top of what I've done with the yellow and the orange. One thing that you can do if you want some nicer little circles is you can use the back of your brush, the handle part of your brush if it's round, and you can just touch it and it will make little circles. And I'm going to just come in with a little touch of brown here and there, kind of in between my little circles, and just not everywhere, just in a few spots. We'll clean that off. Now I want to take some of this golden color, now that my petals are dry, and I just want to come into the center and put a little bit of this golden color. I'm just using a thin layer of paint. Now I need a little bit more pop of red right in here. Now, because this petal is behind this one, especially in here, I'm going to put a bit of a shadow back behind there with a little bit of red and black. So I'm just going to come in along this edge right here. A little bit more black on there. Just create a little bit more of a shadow right there. This kind of has a shadow too, because this is behind, and it's also behind this one. So if I come up here, make sure that I put a shadow here from this petal being on top of that one. Alright, now I will need to do a little bit of refining along my edges to bump them up a little bit. So I'm going to actually take some white with some yellow, and I stuck my brush straight in for this. And we'll put a nice little pop right here. Same thing right here. When we lighten things that are in front of something, it will bring it forward. Just like when you darken something, it helps put behind. So when you do both, you help create the illusion that we're trying to create, that this petal is behind these two. And I'm going to come right here and put a little pop of bright right there too. And we'll come along right here and put a nice little pop of bright right there. And we also have right here and right here. We can't really see, but in between here is another petal. So these two are in front of that dark area. Smooth this out a little bit right here. Now I want to come along for my tips. I'm going to mix a golden color with a little touch of white, so red and orange with some white and a touch of black. Red, orange, black with a touch of white. And I want to come along my tip here of my petal. Just give it a little bit more definition. Just these two, they're the only ones that we have tips showing. If I make it a little bit darker on the underside, it helps set that off a little bit. And I'm going to bump this little corner up right here. Now I just want to come in around my little center here with just a little bit of black now, just to make sure I cover up any spots I don't want there. And as I do, I'll come in and out and have it kind of be up and down a little bit. I'm going to check this to see if this is dry, which it is. I'm going to show you now how to create raindrops, water droplets. Water droplets are actually so incredibly simple. It just takes a little bit of practice to make sure that you don't make the shadow area too dark. So I'm going to start by just getting a shape. So I'm going to take some of this red and black color. And let's say our raindrop is going to be right here. So we want to help give it a shape first. So let's just say this is the bottom part. And let's say it comes up like this. Now, that in itself is a little bit too dark. So I rinsed my brush off, and I'm just going to pull some of this color away. Because if you have it too dark, it will not so much look like a raindrop, a water droplet. So we just want an outline, not necessarily all the way around, but you want to be able to see a shadow. Now that I've done that, I'm going to get a thin layer of white. And I'm just going to come up and fill that in with a thin layer of white. And I'll take a little brighter pop of white and put like a little highlight on my raindrop. And then I'll blend that out a little bit. We don't want it too vivid. And there we have a raindrop. Let me put another one over here. Let's say I start out with a parenthesis on each side. And then I just run that under, over, rinse my brush off, get a little bit of white, and here I put too much on, but that's not a problem. I'm going to rinse my brush off, and I'm just going to take off some of it. So that it becomes transparent and I can see the colors that are underneath of it. And I'm going to put a couple little highlights on this one too. I can just put a couple little tiny dots sometimes. That will work just sufficiently also. And maybe I have a little raindrop up here. So I'm just going to get a little bit of white. Come in. And we'll put a highlight there. I can soften that highlight a little bit if I want. Maybe I have a couple little tiny ones. we'll put those right here. Now I have to be careful, that went on kind of dark, so I'm gonna pull some of it off. And I really can't stress enough how you want to make sure that it's not too dark. And we'll get some more white. I think I need a little bit more shadow under here. And we'll give these a little highlight. So the three basic things to remember is you need a shadow that's not too dark. You need a thin layer of white, very thin, and you need a little bit of a highlight on it. And that's how you can make some water droplets. The last thing that I want to do is I just want to come in with a few more orange and yellow squiggles. Just kind of go over the center a little bit more. And I'm going to take the back of a line brush and kind of put on some orange and white highlights on the tops of my, that's a little too light. One last thing I want to do overall is I want to make sure that my edges have some areas that are a little crisp. So I want to catch this corner right here. Let me get a little bit more yellow on my palette here for this. And I'm going to get this little edge right down here. And right here. And one last little pop of some yellow right in the center here. Will come right over that just to brighten this up a little bit. And I think that it is good. I hope you liked today's tutorial. If you did, give it a big old thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Subscriptions are free, and if you hit that bell button, you get notified when I post new videos. If you decide to do this painting, post it in the comments. I would love to see it, or share any thoughts that you have about painting in general. I'd like to build a community where we can share with each other. So, until I see you again, happy painting. I wanted to share one last thought with you about the Gazania flower. The Gazania flower kind of reminds me of my relationship with the Lord. Without the Lord, I would be frail. The Gazania flower is anything but frail. It can suffer through a lot of heat and a lot of drought and still stand strong and be very beautiful. That's what the protection of having a relationship with Jesus Christ gives me. No matter what I'm going through, I can lean into Him and He gives me the strength. What an amazing thing that is, and it's been a great blessing in my life. I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for watching.